What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we are visiting the subreddit r/ami the butthole. Feel free to pop over there and get involved. Stories will be pinned in the top comment below. But if you are new here, please consider hitting the like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. And today we had an upgrade from Bethan Taylor Actor. You cheeky so-and-so. Thank you so much, and for everyone for spending 20 minutes or so of your day with the channel and getting involved. Thank you so much, and let's crack on with today's stories. Much love, guys. Now, our first story comes from Counting Blessings. Am I the arsehole for telling my wife I warned you when our son got a lock for his room? So here's the problem. My son Simon, 16, moved out of the room he used to share with his little brother and got his own room a few months back. Ever since, he's been complaining about his mum barging in without knocking and interrupting his sleep and studying. Sometimes when he's changing, I know that she's his mother, but he says he's got his own room and has a job and is learning to become an independent adult, but doesn't feel like his privacy is being respected, even when that's his mum. He says he's not a kid anymore and he's entitled to at least get a knock on the door before she comes in. He was getting tired of her not listening to him, so he came to me and said, "Dad, you need to help me set some clear boundaries with Mum." So I spoke to her about her needing to knock before entering Simon's room. She was like, "What? And no, we're family, not strangers. Do you really expect me to foolishly knock on the door 5 times a day? That's ridiculous." Also who knocks the door in their own home? I told her my family, for instance. She made a face, then went on a rant about how my family hate each other and the way they treat each other like they were strangers is shameful. I told her family or strangers is about respecting one's privacy. We had an argument about it, and I told her and if she wasn't going to stop with the barging and refuse to knock on the door before entering, then our son will get a lock. She did it again at 11 PM. She barged in when our son was asleep and he jumped up because he got scared. Once he told me this, I told him to go ahead and get a lock and pay for it with his own money. There was literally no other way. My wife saw it and got upset, and my brother was visiting when she raised her voice at me, questioning if I really went ahead and got a lock for Simon despite her disapproval, and said that I caught her off guard and it's not okay because this teaches our children that they can manipulate one parent into doing what they want. I told her that A, Simon got a lock, not me, and B, I already warned her about the possibility of him getting a lock because he was getting tired of her boundary crossing. So she should have expected this outcome. She mentioned the same above points in her defense and said locks mean secrets and that's not good. My brother was sitting watching while she was complaining. She began chewing him out when he asked her to let Simon keep the lock and said it wasn't a big deal. She stopped talking to me and Simon till we removed the lock, but I have no intentions on doing that. Was I at fault for my stance? Now, this is definitely a not the arsehole. The guy's 16. He definitely needs his own privacy. And why is wife going in the room so many bloody times a day? And at 11 PM as well. I mean, come on, give the guy some respect. This poor dude. I don't blame him for getting a lock. And I am going to say not the arsehole in this situation. And I was almost going to verge into everyone sucks here. And the only reason for that was it sort of felt like in part of the story, like he was almost trying to pass it off as just him making this decision, you had nothing to do with it. And I know you are backing him up in this one, but it almost felt like you was pushing it onto him, where it said something like, I told her that A, Simon got the lock and not me, and you told him to get it and pay for it himself kind of thing. And that's the only reason. That bit just felt a tiny bit shady to me, and I might be wrong there, but I'm happy to go with that. But I'm still going to say I'm not the arsehole in this situation. But a Nota Cocktail says, I think your wife is an arsehole, but the way you handled it with your wife was cowardly. You supported what your son did. In fact, you told him to do it, but then you played stupid by essentially saying, he paid for it, I had no part in it. If you believed in your son's position, you should have supported that to your wife. In fact, if you felt so strongly, you should have told her, the next time you do that, I will personally install a lock on his door. Everyone sucks here, except Simon. And Book Reader says, not the arsehole. So do you have sex with your wife with the door open? Do you shower with the door open? Poop. There are reasonable things that one does in private that even a mother does not need to know about, much less see. And Citronella Spray says, not the arsehole. What the hell? Why is it such a big deal for her? It's unreasonable to put up a fight against someone who's telling you to just knock before entering their private space. Good on you for advising him to get a lock. also, why is she going to his room at 11 in the night? Has she always acted like this, or is this new behavior? And Hot Wife says, not the arsehole, I'm usually a huge proponent of parents being a team and a united front, but your wife is just dead wrong on this one. I knock on my 7-year-old's door if it's closed. It's called basic respect. If there was some sort of true emergency, that's one thing, but just because she feels like going in there, nope, she's flat out wrong. Since she's opposed to knocking on doors, would she be okay with your son just barging into your room while she's changing or sleeping? And Wave character says, fuck no, not the arsehole, your wife needs to learn boundaries. If it was a 16-year-old girl and her father doing it, it'd be considered weird and wrong, especially if it's happened when he's changing. And he's 16, let's be honest here, he needs that lock for other reasons too. That's messed up, I'm sorry, definitely not the arsehole though. And now let's move on to the next story. And our next story comes from Napoleon Sucks. Am I the arsehole for not giving my aunt my necklace? I, 20 female, got given a necklace by my great grandmother years ago when I was about 10 because she just didn't want it anymore. It's a really pretty pendant I wear all the time in the shape of a flower. I'm quite attached to it and rarely ever take it off. At family gatherings recently, my country has no plague, my aunt's been making comments about how much she likes and thinks it's gorgeous. It's culminated in 2 events. Her and my cousin, 8 female, were chatting with me and my aunt started mentioning how it suits her colouring better than mine. My cousin was nodding, but she's young, so I doubt she has much of a stance as to whether my mum or I had the necklace, and ended up with my aunt saying that the necklace should go with her. I was like, no, and said I like the necklace and I'd like to keep hold of it. She then proceeded to lose it at me and said I don't treat it with the respect it deserves. It has lots of stones in it that I don't know the names of, and I think when my great-gran bought it, she spent a bit on it. If I had to guess, I would say my aunt wants it to sell. My aunt proceeded to leave quickly after the incident, of her own accord, and my mum said afterwards I should just hand it over to maintain the peace. This happened a couple of weeks ago, and she hasn't come to see our family or parents since, which is hurting them a bit. I'm standing my ground and I'm not planning on handing it over, because honestly it's my necklace and I was given it, not her. So am I the arsehole for not giving my aunt my necklace? Now this is a very easy, simple one for me, and it's a 100% not the arsehole. You don't hand over stuff just to keep the peace. We've learnt that time and time again through these stories. Entitled people don't deserve to be given free stuff just because they want it. And even if you was to hand it over, once you've done that, you've opened up the floodgates to being taken advantage of time and time again. Do not hand over that necklace, no matter what anyone says at all. And let's not forget this necklace was given to you 10 years ago by your grandmother. That's a special piece that you need to keep hold of. But No Jellyfish 1208 says not the arsehole. Great grandmother gave it to you, not to her. That means it's yours and you can do as you please. Your mum's argument is invalid, by the way. If your aunt wanted her house, for example, would she willingly move out and hand her in the keys to maintain the peace? Doubt. EMR says, not the arsehole, that's really entitled of her. She's not teaching her daughter good interpersonal relationships either. That being said, make sure the necklace stays hidden, locked up so your mum or anyone else can't just take it. And that's an outstanding call actually, because again, something we've learned from these stories is that they suddenly disappear, these necklaces. If you leave them on the side or whatever, they suddenly disappear and you never see them again. But Paul Dinap says, not the arsehole times a billion. It is your necklace passed on to you as a gift from your gran, and it is yours to keep. And don't let entitled aunt or a little kid demand it off you, or let your mum guilt trip you into parting with it just to keep your sulky aunt happy. And Cad says, not the arsehole, your gran gave you the necklace to you 10 years ago. Your aunt is out of her mind and you should not, under any circumstances, give it to her. If she brings it up again, tell her Gran gave it to you, so she clearly wanted you to have it, and that's the end of it. And then just walk away if she ever brings it up again. What a Looney Tunes. Also, if you had it and been wearing it 10 years, you should probably have a jeweler look at it. Stones probably have the settings redone so they don't fall out. Jewelry has to be maintained. Bit of jewelry advice there, lovely jubbly. And Scorchy Song, the final one, says, not the arsehole, you don't resolve a situation like that by giving in. As it shows your aunt, she can get away by making a fuss. The necklace was a gift to you, and you do respect it for more than its monetary value. If your aunt chooses this to draw a line in the sand over, that's her issue and not yours. She isn't saying why it's better off with her. Nothing like, I was close to great grandmother and you've got more of a sentimental claim. And now, with all that being said, let's move on to the next story. And our next story comes from I've been thinking. Would I be the arsehole for telling the neighbours down the street, no parent, no pool? We put in a pool a few months ago and the pool deck is still in progress. It's all dirt/stone currently. The kid down the street who is a bit older than our kids saw us in the pool from the road today and came down to ask if he could swim. We really didn't want anyone because it's still a disaster out back, but I said he could come if his mum was coming over. He came back 10 minutes later in swim trunks with a towel and no parent in sight and said she couldn't come. My wife let him go in anyway and was texting his mum, but I told her I'm going to talk to the parents and tell them that going forward the rule is no parent, no pool. I'm not running a daycare or summer and I don't feel like being held hostage to stay outside because the kids are all playing. The kid is quite a bit older, but just because they are fine with him running around the neighbourhood doesn't mean I want him stopping by uninvited every time he sees us outside. My wife doesn't want me to say anything, she just says to tell him next time that we're going inside, but I don't feel like lying and he would still see us from the road. I want to set the ground rules early. Would I be the arsehole for telling him that they can't just come by every time we're out back, and that when he does, they need to be with him? Edit, just to add for everyone that is worried, we have increased our HO's liability and purchased a PUP policy on top of that to cover the excess liability, so we're good with the liability side, it's more about the watching them. Edit again, just to clarify for the you need a fence people, yes we are well aware that we need a fence. The pool was just built, the patio is just being put in this month, the fence comes after the site work, it will have a fence, chill. Edit for more clarity, there is a temporary fence. My god people, stop harping on something I literally can't make happen any faster than I can get someone out here. Now first when I was reading this story I thought, wow, that's bold of that kid to go up and just say, can I jump in your pool kind of thing. I was like, there's no way when I was younger I would ever consider going up to neighbours and going like, can I get in your pool? And especially then just turn up later with just trunks and a towel like, it's pool time. No way. And then I'd be like, and put myself in the parent of that child's shoes, and my kid come up to me and said, oh, I'm going to go in the neighbour's pool. And I'd be like, what? Did you ask them? I'd be really embarrassed about that. And then I was thinking about the whole insurance thing, because I know you have liability and all that sort of stuff, but that was covered from the edits as well. That was just going in my head as I was reading the story, but not the arsehole in this situation. I think you're totally right. You need to set those ground rules early, otherwise you will get taken advantage of. But let's check out some of the comments to see what they say. And we'll start with OK Image saying, not the arsehole, your private pool isn't a community pool, for fuck's sake, and I'd be ashamed and embarrassed as hell if that were my kid. I wouldn't even go with him. I tell my kids we have no business bothering others to use their pool. That's so rude. And KJNKC saying, not the arsehole, it's a reasonable rule, plus you have to think about liability if anything happened to this child. I agree with you, lying to this kid isn't going to help. If he shows up without a parent, send him to go get one. Are you positive he's even asking his parent to come, or just telling the parent, neighbour said I can use their pool? And Snow White Sludge says, not the arsehole. You should also read up on laws regarding if someone becomes injured on your property. The last thing you want is to be liable for a horrible accident happening in your pool without adequate supervision. Some places are very strict, and if the injury/death happened on your property, you could be sued. We were the house with a pool growing up, and it was a no-go for anyone else unless you spoke to us, cleaned up after yourself and had full supervision, and left before quiet hours. There may be times you guys want private use, and a precedent will have to be set for these kids showing up all willy-nilly. Rules don't make you an arse. And Banff1701 says, not the arsehole, this is actually quite reasonable. You have a right to your privacy, and you also don't want your pool to become public utility. Like you said, you need to set up your rules early. You also want to set up where the kids go home when you want to go inside when there are no other parents around. That is a safety issue. Hope you're getting a fence put up around the pool, otherwise it sounds like you're going to have a lot of uninvited visitors, as well as a safety nightmare. And now let's move on to another story. And our next story comes from Missed Work. Am I the arsehole for making my ex miss her shift at work by not picking up my daughter when she asked? My ex and I, 27 male, have a 6-year-old daughter together. Last week was her custody time. My roommate is currently pregnant. I'm the father and this was going to be the first ultrasound appointment. I drove us to the doctor even if I couldn't go in with her due to COVID restrictions. We're allowed to FaceTime during the appointment so I could at least be there virtually. I got a call from my ex while I was waiting in the car and she needed me for an emergency. The lady that usually babysits my daughter for her got sick that morning and everyone she's called so far is too busy to watch her, so that's why she was contacting me. I told my ex I couldn't because I was at this appointment. My ex said that this was more important since my roommate can just record it for me to watch later. She had a point, but it wasn't going to feel like I was present during the moment. I told her I'd go pick up my daughter once we're done here, but that just led to us arguing because my ex needed to work now. My roommate texted me that they were going to call her in soon, so I told my ex that I had to go and I'll let her know when we leave. By the time we were done, dropped off my roommate, it was well over 2 hours and she was furious. She told me to not even bother picking up my daughter because she'd been making it to work by the end of her shift. She was very cold and distant with me when she dropped off my daughter, and she let me have it a little when she told me what a selfish jackass I was choosing an ultrasound appointment over taking care of my daughter. To be honest, this was a really big deal for me. I didn't get to experience any of this with my daughter because I didn't find out about her until after she was born, so it just means a lot being there for these little milestones during the pregnancy. That's why I'm not sure if maybe being selfish here about wanting to be present makes me an arsehole, since she needed my help and deciding to go after made her miss work. And we're going to start with Everyday Black Guy saying, I'm actually going with you're the arsehole. Not for not helping your ex, but for not helping your daughter. It wasn't just your ex that needed you to babysit her, but your daughter needed you as well. This isn't a child you happen to know. This is your child, your own flesh and blood. Also, I couldn't help but notice how you mentioned how you said your ex called everybody else before calling you. Possibly meaning she can't rely on you not for her sake, but your daughter's sake. I get it, this is an important moment for you. You wanted to see your unborn child, but you still have a responsibility to your child who is already here. And 8 Heckin' Bear says, you're the arsehole, you decided FaceTiming someone you call a roommate during an ultrasound was more important than your actual daughter being taken care of. It's not your fault that things fell through. I'm assuming it wouldn't have taken you 2 hours to get your daughter. Also, maybe start wearing protection so you don't keep knocking up people you aren't with. And Ellie says, why couldn't the mum drop the kid at the parking lot where OP was? Seems logistically the fastest solution. And we'll have one more from Mallory36 saying, you're the arsehole, you're the arsehole. Yes, you weren't required to take care of your daughter at the time, blah blah. To just give a flippant, I'm not legally required to take care of my child right now is a very arsehole-ish thing of you to do. She's your daughter. It may not be your legal obligation to take care of her at all times, but it's certainly your moral obligation to do so. However inconvenient you find it. And now, let's move on to one more story, right? Yeah, let's have a cheeky one. And our final story comes from a throwaway account. Throwaway account and on mobile, so sorry in advance. I, 26 female, am married to my DH, 26 male, and have an older sister, 27 female, who are called Kay. For some background, Kay was the golden child, but my parents rapidly changed their tune when she failed uni and started a party lifestyle for a bit. No longer the case. Suddenly I was the favourite because I finished school and had a moderately successful life. I think it's BS that my parents have/had favourites and I largely keep my distance, but it's something that had troubled Kay a lot. So, DH and I recently got pregnant, surprise, and though I keep a healthy distance from my parents, we still talk. Boundaries are really important to have with them because they will trample all over your entire life and privacy. COVID restrictions are a thing and I'm not big on parties anyways, so I decided to just tell my family about the latest news during a monthly family VC last Friday. I was excited to share the news, but I also didn't beat around the bush. Once everyone had done the preliminary catching up, I said DH and I had some news, and then said I was pregnant. My parents, sisters and grandmother lost it, screaming and laughing and crying in joy. This is the first grandchild/great-grandchild, niece or nephew, so they understandably had a pretty dramatic reactions. Everyone was excited except for Kay, who stayed completely silent the entire time. Once things calmed down a bit, I asked if Kay was still there and she said yes, but she had to go and deal with something. I thought it was odd and didn't give it much further thought. Later I get a text from Kay saying that she was going to make a pregnancy announcement then too, but that I had ruined it. I should have asked her specifically before making the announcement because she, as firstborn, should have been the one to have the first grandchild, and that my child would get all the attention and love and hers would be second rate. I sent her a text saying that I had no clue she was pregnant and congratulating her, and that I was sorry she didn't get to make the announcement when she wanted to. I then, possibly quite stupidly, asked when her due date was. Kay said, "Don't worry, you're first," and has not answered anything since. So Reddit, am I the arsehole? Now this one's definitely a not the arsehole, and we've seen stories similar to this one in the past before. I think it was pretty much exactly the same as this situation about both were pregnant and one announced the pregnancy first, even though the first person didn't know that the other person was pregnant, if that makes sense. But absolutely not the arsehole in the situation, and yeah, you're totally not to blame in it either. However, I couldn't help, even though, sister was wrong for calling you out and said she should have announced it first, I couldn't help but feeling sorry for her. It sounds like, in some ways, toxic family dynamic going on with your parents playing favourites and all that kind of thing. And you're very right to be staying out of it and stuff, but it seems like, sister's been sucked into this over time and she's feeling, down about her parents are almost rejecting her in some way now because of her changed lifestyle and stuff like that. And maybe she sort of saw this as a way of getting herself back in to being accepted by her parents again. So I do have some empathy towards that, and I do feel sorry for sister in that way. But you're definitely not the arsehole in this situation. But Darcy33 says, "Not the arsehole, you had no idea she was pregnant. She's just mad she's not the centre of attention, and that's her problem and not yours." And Requirement Odd says, "Not the arsehole, how could you be? You didn't know she was pregnant, and she didn't know you were pregnant. What's with people making a big deal about having the first kid in the family?" And Naya says, "Not the arsehole, but try to have some compassion for your sister, because your parents are the true arseholes here. They've raised you both in a way that encourages you to compete for their affection, and she hasn't broken free of it the way you have. She probably thought that announcement would get her back to the love they've been withholding, only to find she was out of luck. Not your fault at all, but I am loath to get too negative with her because this all comes from your parents' shitty approach to parenting." That was said much better than the way I did, so absolutely that one. But Music with Roxin says, "Not the arsehole. That would actually have been really rude. Can you even imagine, hey Kay, I just wanted to check in and see if you were pregnant and go to announce it on Friday. Asking people if they are pregnant is rude. It pretty much would have forced you to admit that you are pregnant before you wanted to announce it. You don't announce you are pregnant at someone's wedding or celebration. You don't announce you are pregnant or a gender of the baby in a way that will burn down a forest or cause bodily harm to bystanders. Those are the limit of the rules. You announce it when you want to announce it. If you suspect someone is pregnant, you keep your mouth shut and wait for them to tell you. That's how it works." And now I turn all these stories to you guys. What do you guys make of these stories? What are your verdicts on the stories? Let me know in the comments if you choose to do so. I would love to hear them. I love seeing you guys get involved with the channel and talking to each other about the different dynamics within these stories. I find it absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for your time, for spending it here with me, your love, support, and all that good stuff. If you want to support the channel further, you absolutely can, but never any pressure to do so by clicking that join button down below for YouTube, or joining us over on Patreon and clicking the link in the description. Again, thank you for your love, support, and time, and I will see you cheeky so-and-so, in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.